Hey guys, it's Kirsten, and for today's video, I just wanted to show you guys a demo of how I do a drawing from start to finish using my iPad and my Apple Pencil in the Procreate app. And that totally didn't even happen because after I did the thumbnail and started the full drawing, for some reason Procreate did not record the first part of me doing the line art. So unfortunately, I'm starting with the inking and coloring process and not so much with the initial drawing aspect, but you can see up in the corner the quick thumbnail that I did beforehand before I started drawing. And a lot of people ask me like how I get poses down or how I work out a composition and things like that. And I do a lot of thumbnails and like a lot of sketches beforehand. Like I don't always get the pose right away, even if I know like the kind of idea that I want to do. So it's a really good idea to start practicing like sketching and thumbnails and playing with different ideas before you commit to the final drawing. You'll save yourself a lot of frustration and you'll be able to get your ideas more figured out before you spend too much time on a finished piece and then realize you want to change it. So I'm not really sure what to talk about in this. Today's been a weird day. Like my Procreate app thing didn't work, and then I forgot my mic, so I couldn't do my voiceover while I was at work earlier today. And then my car like got weird, and I had car trouble on my way home, and I was stuck in like a parking lot for a while. So today's just been a weird day. So I'm just gonna chit chat with you guys and give you some tips and tricks that I have for this particular drawing, and just some ideas that I have about it. And who knows? Let's just chat today. So a question I do get a lot when I post digital drawings is what app I use and then what brushes I use. I use pretty much exclusively the Procreate app. If you are getting into drawing on an iPad, I highly recommend checking that one out. I think it's totally worth the $10. I use all brushes that are included in the app, but there are free ones you can download online. So for a lot of my sketching, I use the gouache brush, which is under the artistic brush set. And then for inking, pretty much everything I ink is done with the dry inking brush, which is under the inking panel. So that's what I used for that initial inking part. You can see I worked out a lot more details and things while I was inking. That's just something that's going to come with time. Like you're going to get better at knowing what you want to draw and you'll get more comfortable doing it. So I don't always work out everything in the sketch. I don't always work out everything in the initial pencil drawing. I'll usually end up adding the finalized details and things that I like during the inking stage. That's just my preference. That's just how I've learned to draw over time. It is a thing that you'll get a feel for the longer you practice. And I'm going to say that in this video and in past videos and every video I say for the rest of time. Practice is the best way to get better. Practice is how you're going to get better at what you do. It's how you're going to feel more natural coming up with poses and with details and ideas and things like that. Okay, so for coloring, I get a lot of questions about this too. I pretty much exclusively use the gouache brush. Occasionally, I'll play with a few other ones to get different textures, especially like the organic brushes that they have. But for the most part, I just use the gouache brush. And for selecting the areas that I want to do, I use the lasso tool. And that's a question I get a lot as well. So I personally find that I like having sharper edges in the areas that I color. So it's easier for me to select full areas of the drawing. Like for here, for example, I'm doing the skin tones. It's easy for me to select all of those using the lasso tool, do all the skin tones at once, and then I can jump to a different section like the hair and the clothes and the background and things like that. Um, a lot of people who work digitally work with a lot of different layers in order to do like a base tone and then the shadows and highlights and details and stuff. I don't. This is mostly because I'm lazy and I forget to turn on new layers all the time. So I'll like do all the coloring for like an area of a drawing on one layer, which is not always great because then if I mess up something, I can't go back and erase it. I have to like redo the whole section. But yeah, I tend to work like one layer for the pencil sketch, which I will eventually delete, one layer for the ink lines, and then for this particular one, it was one layer for all of the colors, one layer for all the background stuff, and then I did one additional layer on top of everything where I put like my brightest white highlights and like little small details like freckles and stuff like that. But for the most part, I just work on one layer. And if you see like the colors like that just kind of like popping and appearing, it's because I had the area selected and I laid in the colors really fast. But when Procreate like records your drawings, it doesn't show you selecting things. It just shows you filling in the colors and stuff like that. So it looks much more sped up than it actually was. This entire drawing probably took me maybe 3.5 hours to do throughout the day. It's a lot more involved than a lot of my daily drawings usually are. The ones I do in watercolors are normally 45 minutes to an hour. This was much more involved because I knew I wanted to do a video about it. Um, and again, sorry if it looks a little like you can't see a whole lot of detail forming right away. I like to do subtle shadows and highlighting and things like that at first. So I don't do really sharp shadows unless it's like a cast shadow or something like that. So I'm slowly building up a little bit at a time, like the details and stuff like that. It's usually pretty subtle. I'm not like a very flat color person. I use a lot of soft tones and soft shades and stuff like that. Yeah, in terms of where I got inspiration for this, because I know that's something people ask me all the time. They're like, where do you get inspiration? Where do you get your ideas? Um, a lot of the stuff that I draw is based off my life or things that I see or things in general that I really enjoy, or not enjoy, depending on like what the mood of the drawing is. But it's based off the stuff that you expose yourself to, basically. This particular one came about because I posted about this on Instagram. I just spent the last like 4 days in LA. I was down there just on vacation for a couple days with one of my friends, and we were at the beach. And I particularly wanted to draw a curvy girl at the beach because I myself am a curvy girl, and I deal with a lot of insecurities about that, about wearing a bathing suit and being at the beach and stuff like that. So I really wanted to draw someone that highlighted having a bigger shape and a bigger body and feeling confident in that. So that's where that came from. You guys notice, like I draw a lot of curvy girls, and a lot of it's because of that, because I'm always working to feel more confident about my body. So that's why I draw that. I also have gotten better at drawing curvy bodies because I'm familiar with mine. And then let me see. Okay, this part I considered cutting it out, but I'm like leaving it because it was me just like fighting with what to put for like the towel that she's sitting on. For like, this was probably like 30 minutes of this drawing was this stupid towel that I couldn't figure out the way I wanted it. So a lot of times, like, I'll just show a finished drawing or I'll cut out the parts that like don't work right away. But like a lot of times, especially with digital, when you have the luxury of like deleting stuff and redoing it without damaging like the, it's not like paper where you can damage the paper or paint that you can't undo. I will erase and erase and erase because it's just not what I want. So I eventually like left it and worked on something else and then came back to it. So that's something that happens a lot. Like if I'm too frustrated with something, I will walk away from it and come back to it later, and it usually ends up working out later. Even then, not so much. But I was just like completely fed up with it, so I started working on the background. Um, I didn't really use a ton of reference for this particular drawing. I'm going to do some videos in the future talking about how to get reference, but this one I didn't because I felt comfortable enough and the background was like loose enough that I didn't feel the need to, but I definitely could have spent hours more on this drawing, making it look more realistic or using reference photos to get the shapes better. But in the past, and a lot of times, I've done things like landscape paintings and drawings, and I've drawn shapes that I know that I like for landscapes, like the clouds that I draw are something that I've drawn a bunch of times. So I felt confident enough in how I draw shapes and how I do lighting and shading and stuff like that to not really use reference for this. I also knew I wasn't trying to make this super realistic. It's pretty stylized, so I didn't feel the need for that. But if you're not super comfortable with something, there's no shame in using reference, as long as you're not copying something directly. So I will do some videos in the future talking about how to properly use reference, so you're not like tracing things or copying them directly and just using them for actual inspiration and for learning. And then what did I end up doing? Oh yeah, for the towel, I just ended up making it white with some tiny daisies on it because I was just so fed up with it at that point. And then the last bit I'm doing is the tattoo. I almost feel like if you guys want me to, let me know. Do a separate video on how to do tattoos and make them look kind of realistic, like they're part of a person, because there are like techniques to it. In this particular case, I selected the tattoo areas and I colored them in, and then I actually went back over them with a very low opacity brush that was the same color as the skin, and that made it look more like it was a part of the body as opposed to something that was just like taped on top of it. So that's how you make it look a little bit more like uniform, because you can still definitely see the colors of the skin underneath the tattoo even if they're full color. So that's a little thing that I did there for the tattoos. Since I do draw a lot of tattooed women, that's something that comes with drawing it a lot. The first time I drew a tattoo on someone, it looked like someone had like drawn on her with a Sharpie or like taped something. It was weird. It did not look realistic at all. Um, so over time, like studying tattoos and practicing drawing them, I was able to kind of get an idea of how to make it look a little more realistic. But yeah, that was today's drawing. Yeah, it wasn't too meant to be a tutorial. It wasn't too much information on how to do this drawing. It was really just me kind of doing something to de-stress earlier. Like I really want to do this drawing to de-stress, and then just talking you through the process and just kind of what it is like from start to finish for me. Yeah. So thank you guys so much for watching. Sorry, my voice was a little bit scratchy today. We were in the car for like 9 hours yesterday, and we were definitely singing like a lot. But thank you guys again so much for watching. Go ahead and like this video if you liked it, and go ahead and subscribe to my channel if you want to see more drawing videos. And as always, feel free to leave ideas and questions, comments, anything you'd like to see in a future video down in the comments below, and I'll do my best to make them happen. All right, see you guys in my next video. Bye.